are you on? Okay, welcome to February 19th EDIC meeting. Okay, call to order. Did anybody have a chance to look at Josh's minutes?
They were just perfect.
Okay, I second motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. There's some agendas if anyone wants one. No one's here for public speak.
Can we, before we go too far in, or unless you want to save it for the end, talk about minute taking?
Oh, everyone jumped at that, huh?
I know.
Minute taking for future meetings.
Yeah.
Schedule
I
issue.
volunteered.
I know, I've been doing it for a while, and I'm kind of getting burned out on it. I've been caretaker for my father-in-law for the last 4 years. He's 98, and we put him in the hospice a couple weeks ago, so I'm not sure what my schedule's gonna be like for the next weeks/months. But I also know that I have a meeting scheduled, although it was canceled today, for the third Tuesday of every month from 3 to 4, so it might be tough for me to get here on time. So, if there is, I mean, Gwen said that she could do it part-time, but is there anyone else who might be willing to help? He asked pleadingly.
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
I'm the wrong guy.
Dyslexic and a mess. I'm the least organized person there is.
Well, how about this? I'll do it for now, and I'll tell you if I cannot or will not. And someone will have to step in.
I didn't know what your definition was of part-time. You mean when you're here?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, if
basically.
you're not here, we'll
Not here, I'm sure you'll figure it
We'll
out.
figure
And you know, I can help too sometimes in a pinch hit.
Right.
But I just-
Okay, very good, thanks. Before we get going, you know, you didn't bring them today, it's okay. The newspapers that Jeff usually gives me, the New England Real Estate Journal, this is not important, it's just kind of a chuckle, I just pass it around. Just, it's an ad. We got firms now advertising cannabis build-outs.
Mhm.
I just, I was just kind of, not important.
There's a whole industry out
Yeah, I
there.
was just
Yeah.
gonna say, yeah.
It really is.
Real growth industry.
Okay, so the next on the agenda is our planning department report, but I'll leave it up to, as far as that goes, I'll leave it up to Jeff and Nicole if you wanna get into your draft thing first.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, I think that's all I'm
don't know,
really gonna
Okay, go ahead.
talk about today, because I know, we talked about, so last time, I committed to handing out the draft scope, and then I didn't, because we had an initial meeting with the consultant. So this is not necessarily something that, we will go over and read line by line right now, because it's really robust, but this is an outline of what the downtown strategic plan process will look like and the things that will be covered. So kind of as we discussed last time, the idea is whether there's anything glaringly missing or any really important items that you think either should or shouldn't be in here. So we're very close to finalizing the scope, which will then lead to executing the contract and then kind of launching it. So I am showing this to the planning board tonight as well. And so in prep for that, you know, the timeline at the back is subject to not really start earlier, but it's subject to kind of pushing out slightly depending on when we execute the contract and when we get things really going. But right now, it's set to start, kick off sometime in March.
Can we get another copy after the meeting?
An extra copy or? Yeah, here.
There wasn't enough.
Okay, yep.
Oh.
Do you need
We
one?
have copies in email.
Okay.
Okay.
So Jeff,
Yes.
I did read the whole thing, believe it or not, and 13 pages, I think it is. And just a couple thoughts. The more I read, the more it answered my questions, but it looks like the downtown strategic plan obviously encompasses more than just the school reuse.
Yes.
So, but it does encompass the school reuse as part of that $50,000 grant, right?
Correct.
So Dave, just a technical issue on number 8, I was just gonna suggest we move that under the planning board, because there's not gonna be a separate discussion. It's all gonna be part of the downtown strategic plan as we go forward.
It was a big deal for me just to retitle it. Now I gotta move it.
Now you can move it.
Okay.
Although I
Actually,
understand
no,
from reading it, there
we're-
will be a separate reuse committee set up that will take the recommendations from here.
Right, I just wrote reuse, but I guess that's part of.
It'll all be part of the plan.
What you're saying is it's gonna be part of this grant.
Exactly.
I see.
Part of the downtown strategic plan.
But a school reuse committee, when we get closer to the surplusing of the property, isn't precluded outside of this grant that the scope is. So, for instance, if this process of a grant decides, doesn't recommend the reuse, it doesn't mean there won't be one. I mean, it'll be the temperature of the community and what we need to do to surplus those. I just wanna.
So this is fully advisory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's driven by data, I just, and I'm not, hedging or making a decision either way. I just don't want folks for it to remain on the agenda or be tabled until we get further into the grant, at the leisure of this committee, but,
It just sounded like this process, Nicole, was going to come back with recommendations
it will.
to the committee.
And they will be done by June 30th of 2019, and we're looking at a reuse.
A couple of years later.
Yeah,
right?
and we have
Makes
some
sense.
big economic indicators coming at us that,
Makes sense.
Yeah,
And they also seem
potentially.
like there's 3 separate entities, which are really complex, and I don't think that this group is gonna be able to.
they're very ambitious.
Are
I
they?
mean,
Okay.
just the scope. I mean, Jeff and I were like, wow, this is a
Yeah.
lot.
It did just seem
I
like-
mean,
it did seem like a
right?
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does go out to at least August, so it does go past June. But I think the idea generally is that there will be a set of recommendations on a couple key elements. So
Right.
the school,
Right.
properties, parking, and then anything else that's kind of really important, really that comes out of for downtown recommendations. And then I think the idea generally would be, one of those would be conceivably that there is some kind of committee established to continue to explore the reuse of
Yeah.
schools. I
To
think
get
that's,
through the end.
and then this will be some of the baseline work that
Mhm.
they'll have at their disposal once they start.
When you read this, Dave, it sounds a lot like part of the visioning process, because
Yeah.
literally walking tours and the charrettes and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
The way I looked at it when I was reading it was, I viewed everything that everyone said was that it was kind of gonna be like the starting point, because I think the way the community is now is once, I hear different ideas for reuse, but I don't think anyone's really, hot on it at the moment, because it's not at the forefront.
Right.
So this will help us not recreate the wheel to some degree, and give
Yeah.
us a good starting point.
When they submit the recommendations, are they out of the picture at that point, or will they be around to keep changing them?
No,
as-
it'll be a report.
And that'll be it?
That'll be it, which you, again, like, there will be a series of next steps that we'll need to figure out who's gonna carry steps forward
Okay.
from there.
And
They
then-
won't, yeah, cause this contract will end.
Okay.
If there's another funding source, we could, if they were highly desirable, we could find out how to, it is a phased project, so I think I think I'm trying to be careful that this is, I think as David said, that it's an initial opportunity for people to start placing their ideas, comments, and concerns somewhere
Sure.
legitimate, gonna be tracked and cataloged. This by itself will not solve all our problems or forecast everything
Right.
in the future, but it's the necessary kind of place to start, is what it's always been envisioned
So
as.
one of the knocks we took with the 2 visioning processes we did, and I see it here again, with the charrettes, they're during the day. And I know we have to work around their schedule unfortunately, but a lot of the stakeholders are individual business owners who obviously can't leave their shop or close it for the day. So I don't know how you potentially bring them into the discussion. I know they could get there probably at 6 o'clock at night or something, because it goes from 6 to 7:30 at the tail end, but I'm not sure how you can potentially involve the existing stakeholders, who a lot of them are one-person shops.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would throw out there is that there is no specific day of the week identified here, so I definitely was envisioning the potential for a Saturday as a way to potentially get a different group of people potentially available. That's not, nothing's gonna be perfect,
No,
so.
it'll be-
Knock out all the restaurant owners for a Saturday.
Well, there's,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that's so this is a good kind of conversation we wanna have, so maybe I can bring that to them and raise the issue and see if there's an alternative arrangement or a way to try to break it up somehow.
I mean, there's 2 separate days, so maybe one could be a weekday, one be a Saturday,
Yeah.
and it allows,
Will it all be recorded for public access?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, usually that's what we'll do.
My sister watches them all religiously. Well, it shows me the highlights or tells me what things to watch, so. No, it's great,
pretty
it's
awesome.
great, yeah.
I think that is well taken, and I think, you know, it's something I don't wanna, I'll say it, and, you know, with all of these, people with, children it's a struggle, so,
Right.
you know, nothing will be, where there's no one kind of event that could just get everybody, so
Right.
it's always a give and take, but I will bring that observation back to them and figure out if there's some way to break up the 2 days from a weekday to weekend at least.
Yeah. and
There'll be online surveys and there'll be other opportunities.
Yeah,
And
online's good.
We're asking them to build a website so that information can be posted a lot quicker
Perfect.
and available, so then, you know, to build in a subsequent opportunity for people to comment outside of the actual charrette.
And then with the strategic plan, and I know, again, it's 2 years out, is
Yeah.
the whole Union Street project. I
Mhm.
mean, is that somehow, is there an eye to that while this strategic plan is being worked on?
Yep, so this is Cottage Street, Union Street, and a portion of Main Street. So I think as part of this, there's an inventory of existing plans or projects underway. So I think the discussions around Union Street need to be, I guess, you have a short term. And the midterm is when it's reconstructed,
Yeah.
and long term is after that. So that's all part of what's supposed to be part of this. Great, well, I wanted to offer this, I can take comments for another couple days, and then, you know, it's something where this group will be involved, a lot of other people will be involved, and it would be a great thing to be participating.
It's a really fun process, and seeing your town through a different set of eyes is interesting. I remember when we did it with Walter Kudnahofsky from Ashby, when we did the walkthrough, we started at the Rotary and ended at Nini's. And he said we had to make a comment about every single property, a positive comment about every single property. So when we got to a building that was really run down, we'd say, great location, great visibility.
Potential.
Has potential.
It has potential. So that's how you create, you know, like if you look at the Moriarty property today, with all due respect,
Yeah.
you have to say something positive about that. But you see that through another set of eyes when you go through this kind of a process,
Right.
which is really great.
How long ago was the
Parking for
last one?
neighbors.
Pardon?
How long ago was the last
Who
one?
wires that?
Dave, you remember the envisioning, was it 2000 and again in '05? It's been a while.
Yeah.
What, this
because-
one? This,
The last time we did this.
That one was just for the Mill District,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was 2002.
Yep.
Yeah, because in 1998, I think is when, these people did a little study, RKG.
I don't remember when Walter did the two,
I think it was, I think you were right.
2000 and '05.
Yes.
Part of, so, this is, the Harriman Group is the consultant that we've chosen, and they used to be, part of the Cecil Group. So the Cecil Group has done work in Easthampton before, and they
Yeah,
did.
that was 1998, I believe.
Yeah, and then in 2014, they did the Union Street, Complete Streets exercises, which actually led to the Complete Streets plan and the transportation improvement project on Union Street and some of the design. So they have some knowledge of Easthampton, which is good. And if I haven't said this before, one of the strategies is there really is not funding available for a town or city to do a whole comprehensive master plan.
Mm.
Those estimates are coming in around $150,000 to do everything all at once, and those funding sources are just not available. So the strategy has been really to kind of take topics or areas and do sort of a condensed or comprehensive look at that area or that topic, so.
which I think is smarter because the city
Right.
doesn't have the finances to do the whole package anyhow.
Right, so you
And
could.
things change.
It's
Yeah.
almost time to look at where the Mill District is,
Yep.
we're looking at downtown, you know, we talked last time about housing, so soon housing will be a topic unto itself that gets explored, and
Mhm.
open space and preservation, and then start to weave them all back together, so that's kind of what the funding sources are suggesting at this point.
It was interesting at the meeting, the grant meeting you held, January, I think it was.
Yep, Community Development Block Grant.
When you talk about solutions to certain issues, it's interesting to hear people where we talk about open space versus housing, and you talk about a space where housing might be appropriate, and someone says, no, I like that open space. But I don't want my taxes to go up anymore. Well, you need more growth to have your taxes stay stable, stabilize costs, values, if you will. And then we talked about a couple other spots for housing, and someone said, but I don't want increased traffic. So we can't have our cake and eat it too. We're gonna have what we have with higher taxes, or growth with less open space and more traffic. Choose your poison.
It's all,
Yeah.
it's
Interconnected, for sure.
It's interconnected, but what the paradox is, population's declining, traffic's increasing.
Right.
Population's declining, and there's pressure on housing. Doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is, I mean,
Yeah, and we talked, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
belabor this, I know that we have talked in this group that housing is an important issue, Mayor's looking at, that we're looking at, we need to find the right funding source for some kind of housing study to take what has been said, a lot of it, not to make it sound negative, but a lot of it's anecdotal or pieced together from people's observations, and what we really need is a comprehensive look at housing, and then the series of next steps to break the logjam, to look at new sites, to kind of figure out how it connects to increased traffic and things like that. So that's the housing study that's coming one of these days, as soon as we find the proper funding source.
okay,
All right.
that's cool. How many grants are you working on at the moment? Just curious.
Quite a few. So,
I'm not suggesting.
More than 10?
I'm not suggesting you.
Bigger than a bread box?
More, but I was just wondering how many, so you're working on this one, and, you have obviously the Ferry Street stuff.
Mhm.
What other ones that you're in the middle of?
Like an update?
No,
Or-
I don't want an
no?
update, just how many things how many of these little packages could you throw at the mayor if she said, what are you doing today?
Well, I'm working on my budget, I could go get my draft budget
Yeah.
narrative.
No.
I have a grants list.
Just a round number, just a rough number, just curious, because my point being is you're doing a lot, and then like you say, you're working towards housing, but you haven't identified a source for that yet. So, but if you did, it would be all hands on deck, I imagine.
Yeah, and some of this, the way that this downtown strategic plan is set up is I am facilitating, the hardest part, to be perfectly honest, is coming up with the scope, getting the contract situated, then the project starts to unfold, and the consultant, that's what they do, is they take on all the responsibilities of
I
gathering
see,
everything. So
okay.
it's not,
Yeah.
that's where, the planning department can host a lot of these other studies at the same time.
I see. So
And then,
Right.
so
it's
Ferry
just-
Street is really gonna be something that becomes shared with DPW, it
Mhm.
becomes a road improvement project, so
Right.
DPW is gonna get some of that.
Well, that's a good point, I'm glad you mentioned that, I understand now.
Right, and the block grant is the same thing, so we're continuing
Yep.
the work on the Maple Street, Emerald Street area, and so the planning department has facilitated that, and then it starts to transition to other departments.
Okay, great.
And the housing would be the same idea, as I think the sense is that the planning department should just kind of figure out the housing, but it would really be having the consultant who can then gather all the information and
Yeah.
synthesize it and bring it back to the city is sort of with recommendations, I think
Right.
is gonna be the key thing.
We would love to be in a place where we are proactive rather than reactive with going after grants. A little bit of that is out of our control because any given administration makes their priorities. So, the current administration, Baker Polito administration, is really good and loves working with mayors. And that community compact grants that we've gotten since, 2011 is great as far as picking off little technical things and opening up opportunities for bigger grants. So we'd love to get to a point where we're aggregating data, so when we're talking about anecdotal information, we actually have a data aggregator for our city, our county, and our region, and our opportunity zone, and how we connect to others. So we will proactively say, housing is a mess, and we need, studio apartments, and we'll have data that's actually gonna say, well, yeah, we need that, but we need over 55, or, the condo market is gonna go south, and then start directing all departments. I mean, a lot of our economic development grant work and things that really go to land value, they emanate and are closed out by planning, sometimes finance, but by planning, and that needs to be dispersed to other departments, you know, looking at Board of Health and DPW and getting them the skills, all based on data, you know. And we're, you know, looking at some models and entities that might be helpful in that, because they're interested in bigger data, and we're a part of the data. So
I
they
see.
wanna be helpful to us because they wanna get to metadata and, you know, and it back and forth, so. It's on the list, Jeff, I meant to mention that, no, it's not. It's
No,
not
but I
on
think
the
that
list. Yeah.
so if you look at open space, there's a couple things
Yeah.
moving with open space. I am gonna say something about Easthampton City Arts, so Easthampton City Arts is gonna kind of start to pursue project, and then we're just kind of branching out on all the elements to
Yeah.
collect data, it's really one of the things.
Why don't you go ahead and see the arts?
Great, all right, so, for a little while, I think, people have been asking for an update from the arts coordinator, and so she's expressed to me that Tuesdays are generally a conflict, especially Tuesday afternoons are a conflicting meeting, which is why, some of the reason why she hasn't been in a while. So I asked her for just a quick one-page update. So it goes over the fundraiser that ECA held in December. It was a good turnout, lots of community members. It was at Old Town Hall, food catered by Galaxy. And then they offered tours of the Old Town Hall second floor. Currently, ECA and the arts coordinator are coordinating the second, sorry, not the second, so this is the 5th annual Book Fest. So it's gonna be on April 13th. So it's a project that takes a lot of coordination with vendors, performers, and other sort of people who are participating, so that's kind of beginning now. And then what we've all come to know and love is Cultural Chaos, so that'll be the 6th annual on June 8th. And then I think she described this as a newer initiative to have a heart for public art. So it's a fundraiser. It says this is the second one. So these are the 4 main initiatives that the arts coordinator is currently working on. And there's a lot more
Yeah.
underneath all this, but that was a quick update. I don't know if you have any other questions, I can certainly
And
ask them.
Jeff, I don't know, I know we're still fleshing out all of the contracts with Valley Bike Share and whatnot, but I know in our initial proposal, and Pascalina had a lot of expertise in the bike donation program
Yeah.
and connecting those and maybe public art. I don't know if that's fleshed out anymore. It was kind of a scant paragraph in our application.
We want to, so the city has had a pretty successful bike auction program for the past several years, but it's really just bikes that were obtained by the police department, a bunch of different ways they obtained bikes, and then they auctioned them off. The idea will be that we think that there's a model to get bikes donated by people, and then set up a refurbishing sort of class or system where the bikes can be upgraded, so if they need a new tire, new chain, things like that, and then distribute it to people who would need a bike in Easthampton. I think it's a little bit bigger of a project to set up
Mhm.
before it gets initiated, but that is a concept that we are looking at. So I think it's fitting it in with all the other things that the arts coordinator is doing, but Pascalina has experience with bikes and launching a similar program, so it's something that's probably in the works for the summer, I guess.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to that. I need a break.
So, does either one of you, Nicole or Jeff, wanna talk about the, EV charging stations opportunity?
Well, there are now 2 grant possibilities. The one that I shared, and now one from the state and help from utilities around EV charging stations and grant possibilities and complete funding. One has, and I grab it or print it out, has more money for the total infrastructure and use and maintenance. And I don't know a lot about that one. I remember throwing it away. But the original one is around infrastructure that I asked this committee to kind of take back. It's not an involved grant application. you know, it's pulling some information from really master plan and some other planning documents and putting it forward. The second one is more involved and it is more money. I have not looked at it completely.
Does one preclude the other, or can you do both?
I tried to figure it out. The second one, it looks like there's a list of what you can go after, and maybe there's something that complements the first. And the other thing I did not look at is when we find out about that first one, and the submission of the second. So, you know, if we go for something that's complementary on the second one, and we don't get the first one, and that has to be sussed out. I mean, what I'm asking for, you know, is a commitment from somebody or the whole committee to do a side meeting, that, you know, Jeff and I are more technically prepared to walk through the grant and what's needed, and to have somebody kind of take point on that grant application, from this group. The important thing is to apply for ideally both of these, again, gets us into a list, and on the radar of these sorts of organizations can pool grant money to go forward. I mean, I'm not saying we're behind on EV charging stations, but more, bigger, better is coming, and we wanna have at least our boots on the ground there.
Toe in the water.
Yeah.
And I sent an email out to the group with update on green communities as well, so there's that, I don't know if that's, I think that's a third funding
Yeah.
source. So, but the green communities, it appeared to me to be a very small amount that they've allocated for this specific item. So EV charging stations is limited to $15,000 per community, and it's only up to 2 stations. So that, to me, may serve to fund the actual, it's not clear. That's one of the painful tasks of the grant, is really digging in to get to all the criteria and beginning to flesh out if there's something that precludes you from continuing.
Yeah.
But it looked like the green communities could contribute pretty minimal amount, 7,500 per station, and you're up to 2. But that, from what we've talked about, or what I've understood,
Yeah.
to install it, you're talking much more significant dollar amount
Yeah.
than what the green communities will cover. So it's the idea of stacking the funding sources together.
What does everybody feel about this one, that having a side meeting or supporting or getting involved with?
I would.
Sure.
I'd be involved with
Okay.
You wanna schedule that now?
Yeah, yes. Well, that was my next thing. So on a fourth moon after the red tide. What did you guys have in mind?
So I'll just throw out that, the mass EVIP, so there's mass EVIP, electric vehicle, there's one, sorry, let me take one step back. There's one that is based from the Volkswagen emissions case, so they're calling that mass EVIP. And that's I think that's the critical one to focus
Yeah.
on and drill down. That's due March 18th.
Right.
So that's
And-
essentially a month. The 18th is a Monday, but this would be in addition to our next meeting, right?
I would suggest sometime next week if
Yeah,
possible,
okay,
because
Mhm.
it's hard to determine how much time it will take to determine what's involved.
it.
Well-
I could do this time next week.
The 26th.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 4, you're saying?
Yeah, Tuesday the 26th at 4.
I think that works for me.
Yeah, I could do that as well. I like the 4 o'clock, that's a great time to meet.
That's fine with me as well, but, just 2 questions, so you have to do work ahead of time for that? Yes or no?
I think what I would offer to do is go into these links, PDF them, and
Yeah.
send them back out to the group so that everyone can read through them.
Uh-huh.
I think that's important, is to
Okay.
get in there as
So
soon as
that's our,
possible.
so there'll be some homework coming our way?
It would be to read as much
Yeah.
as we can get on the actual grant, and then start to discuss sort of how that
And
takes
then,
shape.
my next question is, what are we gonna accomplish, the committee members, at that meeting? What's our task?
I know that one of the tasks is we need to come up with a relatively short list of sites. So I know that this committee has talked about maybe like zoning for private business, private development, but this is, I think these are gonna be oriented to public places, so in street parking or behind the mills. You know, I think we have
At
to
the
come up
park.
with a, what's that?
At the park.
Millside Park.
Or Nonatuck.
Nontuck Park, yeah, so we have to come up with a list and then narrow that list down to fit within whatever the grant framework is, which I also don't know what that framework is yet.
Alright, so we'll
So
read
list
about
of-
it and have those
Yeah.
information and.
Before
sites.
next Tuesday.
Right,
Yes.
and a list of potential sites that,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if everyone thought of sites and then we put them all together and come up with the list and then start to figure out what's gonna fit in the grant criteria.
And then,
But also, hopefully, or was, you know, to have, start from submission date, right, on the 18th, and go back and decide what needs to be done and who can take on what. You know, whether that is just, I don't know, get longitude and latitude for the sites, or make sure that they're prioritized, or a narrative. And our master plan and the open space plan and some of the bike share grant, it has that narrative.
Yeah.
So it's really about compiling what we have and then adding, you know, the strengths to the specific grant proposals. You know, the grant, you know, scoring, to make it as strong as possible.
so I was also gonna suggest, or just throw out, the grant applications due March 18th. Our next meeting would normally be March 19th. I was wondering if we wanted, just for for the month of March, bump up our meeting to the 12th, so that if we could, any loose ends, or whatever,
Sounds good.
you know, and then that way, we would meet twice next week, and then, well, and then not twice, not additional twice, but twice, we'd meet twice before the deadline, next week and the 12th.
Okay, March 12th then,
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Okay.
And then, so as far as writing the grant, we're, the committee's gonna write the grant?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Not him. Stupid.
So there will be some offline work where we're not sitting together doing the thinking. That's how that's
Correct.
probably gonna go.
Yep.
I think-
Literally online, but figuratively offline.
Right.
I think next Tuesday would be a good target to go away with some tasks individually, and then, you know, we might even expect a subgroup again to meet. Well, it depends. It depends on, I honestly didn't open the Volkswagen one. I did look at green communities. So we just have to figure out, really, it's just taking a look at some of the criteria.
Yeah, the
and then coming up
Volkswagen
with that
one
tomorrow,
looks,
Tuesday.
you know, compared to others, pretty easy. I mean, they need to give the money away. I can't figure out who the big push contact.
There's gonna be a couple, so to think, in prep for a meeting next Tuesday would be who, like, so in your group's previous discussions, who would be candidates for letters of support? So obviously you have an in-house, one from the chief executive officer here. This group itself would write a letter, but then who else do we think would be writing letters of support for something like this?
EV users?
Right,
I mean,
to establish a need. So like, I don't know if there was ever discussions of desire. I think there's definitely something in the master plan.
Is there
somewhere, but
sales? People who sell these cars, would they
Yeah.
write a letter of support?
so I would think so, yeah.
yeah.
Got the Chevy dealer, the Nissan dealer,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you have a member of the Agricultural Commission and CPA, Russell, he drives a EV vehicle. And the gentleman up at Big Red Frame,
Oh, yeah,
Pierre.
Jean-Pierre, although those are hybrids, they're not total
oh,
EVs.
they're not totally EV.
Right. So it's just,
I
that's
drive
something
a
to think
total
about.
EV.
Uh-huh.
I drive a total EV,
Write a letter.
yeah, I'd be happy.
First person.
The chamber,
Yeah,
Yeah.
presumably the chamber, yeah.
The Bolt, it's a great car.
Wow.
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Russell and Jean-Pierre would be happy to ride too,
Okay,
if that would make a difference.
you know, I just,
You gonna ask them?
Sure.
Great.
here we go.
I will wait till after our next meeting, so I know exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of
Well,
times the
yeah.
applications have sample letters, like giving some ideas, I mean, we can pull
Okay.
something.
Or someone writes them and they become a sample.
Yeah.
Really, Jeff?
Mention no names.
No.
Anything else that that comes to your mind regarding this topic before next Tuesday, or next, when do we say we're meeting, next Tuesday?
Next
Next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Four.
Next Tuesday, does that have to be posted as a work session? Because
so.
I'm assuming it's a.
Well, that's
forum.
me, 'cause I'll say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well,
If we have a
That
quorum.
doesn't
in
mean
this
it's
group,
correct,
I assume.
though.
right.
If we have a quorum.
It's a work
It has to be
session.
posted, I guess.
Well, I'll, today's Tuesday, I'll have it posted tomorrow.
Is this room free then? Do we know that?
I don't know.
I don't either.
They let me know sometimes when I,
Move the dates or.
well, no, I send the agenda, so sometimes they look. they know-
Conference room G? Should we go to conference room Galaxy?
Oh,
I got
wow.
it. Refreshments.
We don't have a camera there, but we can get one.
You sure?
Easthampton Media.
Right now?
Sure.
I am a member.
Fair.
So that's gonna be,
It doesn't look like there are any meetings scheduled in the
Yeah.
upstairs conference room on my calendar, so, I mean, that could be a good alternative.
2/26, I'm just making a note to get this, published, for work session. Okay, very good. Unless somebody else has anything to say on that, that's good.
Exciting.
Yeah. Well, so, I don't have anything else unless you guys wanna go through the agenda, or anyone else has anything to mention? I don't hear anything.
You sent us that thing about Nesterly
What was that?
seniors.
Oh,
living
yeah, that was just
in
food for
boats.
thought, but, it's
It's
just,
real interesting.
yeah, I had a couple articles I forgot to, I was gonna send too, but, there was one, yeah, that was just food for thought, and, I know in Northampton years ago, I think, with accessory apartment, try to address some of that way before,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always that, but, I think it's just people too, just reaching out, boarding and stuff, and, doing the Airbnb on your own, I guess, just having someone stay with you. But that was mostly food for thought, just, the other article I was gonna send out, I wasn't aware of this, but you've all heard of Zillow, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Zillow, and most of us use it as a,
Looking inside other people's houses.
yeah. However, Zillow, not anywhere near the scale of Facebook and Google and Amazon, is a big data, is making money off big data. So they are buying homes. They partner with equity companies, private equity companies, and they own tens of thousands of homes nationwide. And I don't think in our region it will become an issue, but in other regions, especially the southeast in Phoenix, because Phoenix seems to be a test case for lots of housing ideas on big scales. But they're buying houses, foreclosures, all kinds. They're making for cash, and they're renting them. They're becoming one of the biggest landlords nationwide.
So they're using the data to figure out what's a good deal and they're scooping it up.
Right, and one of them is trailer parks. The trailer park one is disturbing to me because on that, I have nothing against trailer parks, but on that scale, it makes me nervous because one of the problems with trailer parks, no, I shouldn't say problem, an aspect of trailer parks is that, not all of them, but a lot of them, the trailer park entity owns the land and you own the building. In a very crude, basic sense, that's a feudal arrangement. You can end up paying, the plot of land sometimes, the trailer can be valued between $10,000 and $30,000. A new one's like 30, and they depreciate. But you end up paying more for your land rental than you do for your trailer.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a bad situation sometimes because there's predatory lending and stuff. you know.
And it's not easy to
Yeah.
move them either, so
Right.
once you're there, you're there.
Yeah, right, and so, it just, you know, Zillow is not the only one, but there's other companies getting into the real estate game, but the money they're getting, the money they're using for this is coming from the big data world, advertising, you know, it's, to me, it's like funny, cause, you know, we click on that, like you say, we click on, Google Earth or, Zillow, be nosy or check something out, but someone along the line, I don't know who, is paying for that click.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And these clicks add up, obviously,
Yeah.
because they're worth a lot of money. You know, I don't know if it's when you buy a can of Coke, that somewhere in that can of Coke, there's part of the click. I don't know how it works, because none of us are transferring money when we, you know, but it's there. And it just, here's an article that's, you know, not in our, I don't think it's gonna be such an issue in our area, because we're northeast is different.
Yeah.
But anyway, housing, it's just another food for thought for the pressures on housing, that's all. I like what you said earlier though about, you know, when, a comprehensive grant for the citywide, you know, master plan, 150,000. You know, I don't think that's a good idea anyway. I like the specific, you know, it's nice to have things done in a whole.
Right.
But we don't have we don't have Sim City where you can do, you know,
Mm.
we get, you know, how do you wanna plan your city when you have a total blank slate?
Yeah.
You know, and it maybe you know, with a few variables kicked in, like maybe a coastline or a river, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we don't have that luxury, so we just, you know, you might spend more than 150 over a period of 5 years, 6 years. You know, I'm saying 50 grand here and 50 grand here.
More relevant though.
Right, you get more bang for your buck.
Rather than waiting for some kind of funding source that could encompass
Yeah.
everything, we've started pursuing the smaller assessments.
Yeah,
by
in the last
topics.
year, we've been really successful of picking off those little amounts of grant and then leveraging them for something bigger.
Mhm.
You know, getting into the municipal vulnerability project, you know, that design grant that we got into this year and just had that one day. I mean, that keys up some, like, as much as what, $400,000 next year and.
For projects.
Yeah,
For
projects. Yeah, so I mean, to leverage, it's, I wouldn't say frustrating, but it's just a lot of feasibility study work, and it picks off parts of what we would do in an overall plan, but it allows us that second round of funding to address something that's pretty important, whether that's leveraging for housing or, you know, a very vulnerable part of our infrastructure and getting rid on that and sewing it together. I would say that it takes up, though, a lot of admin time to sew it all together, and as I say that out loud, maybe that is purposeful on big granting organizations, because one thing, of course, in grants they really don't like is, you know, administrative money, you know, coming out of the grant. They want all of that money as much as possible to go to outcome. So that lies on planning and DPW
Yeah.
and, you know,
That has been a big shift, is they don't really,
Yeah.
so the block grant, the community development block grant is sort of like the last vestige
Yeah.
of big grant funding sources that actually allow you to pay for staff time to do stuff, and then, so everything else, like MassWorks, there's no, you know, there's no city staff funding time attached to that. There's funding for all
Yeah.
kinds of consultants
Yeah.
to put together pieces of the puzzle, but, yeah, the admin part is not, it's not coming forward on any of these grants.
It's a gatekeeper, I think, it sounds like, to
I
get
mean, they-
serious grant.
well, that's
Yes.
just it,
Yeah.
right, they wanna know how committed you are,
Yeah.
so are you gonna put in for the 50,000, are you then gonna do the 15,000 matching, you know, to go forward, and then get into the bigger pools of money? I mean, we saw that with MassWorks, we went after a whole bunch of little things and pulled them together at, you know, and the timing, Easthampton is very willing, you know, on a lot of levels, that are project friendly. So we were able to move it through committees in a proper public process, to hit those grant deadlines. But there were communities who did not get into MassWorks, and it wasn't, they didn't even get their application in because they couldn't get the pieces, whether it was diff or TIF. So to have this committee, I'll go back to my original ask, to help with grants like this, it's pretty important. And our city departments are gonna get more and more pressure on them with the extreme amount of work and improvements we have between now and 2026. It's not gonna get and we're not gonna stop, like Jeff.
No,
Fine.
this is a great discussion though, because I think
Okay.
what's good to think about is, you know, we've been really lucky to be able to tap the master plan and open space plan
Mhm.
for really great projects, but we're running low on projects left from that set of plans. So that was part of the idea of moving into setting, visioning for a bunch of different things. So with the downtown planning grant, we'll have a new set of, you know, community-based priorities to focus on that will keep us going towards state money for that. And then the project I didn't really talk about is, through the arts coordinator, and ECA, we're going to, facilitate an arts visioning sort of series over the summer that would help look at arts and culture in Easthampton and where does that want to go and be in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So we've done so much. We've surpassed the goals and expectations and we're out kind of evolving without that clearer picture of where we want to be. So the arts visioning program is another one that kind of fits all these models of biting off manageable chunks of what's happening in Easthampton and kind of
Well, I'm
seeing
glad
how
to
it
hear
progresses
that, because
forward.
that's good, because, for a different reason, you know, the casino's revenues are below their shortfalls. Their spin is they're ramping up, but the long and short of it is they overpromised. So, but at some point in time, you know, they're gonna be pushing hard on more cannibalization of Northampton,
Mhm.
and so.
I just heard an ad today for King Lord, door-to-door service, at the casino, it's $20.
Right, you know, at some point in time, they're gonna bail on the casino, you know, the casino's not going anywhere. But in the short term, they're gonna be trying harder.
Mhm.
And, you know, so those opportunities to look at how we wanna pursue our arts.
Right.
You can't just be complacent,
Yeah.
just, you know, that's
No,
very good to hear.
That's,
Right.
no, we'll try. And, you know, the last is the downtown strategic grant and other grants like it. You know, the outcomes are really great launching pads to different bigger grants. So to say that we've done this parking study to this extent, so we're gonna apply for something, you know, a grant that goes to a parking district or, you know, studying for things based on this plus whatever we get out of one ferry and data and whatnot, and gets us into another round of grants and, you know, something about reuse and maybe that committee, you know, that recommendation, that committee needs a little money, we can go after a smaller community compact grant or show we have all this data that we completely don't have control over and, you know, there's some really nice community data aggregator programs up there that other cities near us are using and it's been really helpful to, Pittsfield has, you know, if you wanna go down the rabbit hole, has a great aggregator, that has been very helpful, so. So I have to step out.
Yeah, okay,
Can I ask
Thank you
one
all.
quick thing before you end?
yeah.
Are there any plans for buildings across the street from the new dorms at Williston on Main? Those 3 that were dorms that are vacated?
Only thing I know is, I don't know anything. No.
Wow.
I'm sure they have
Wow.
plans, they have a
Wow.
master plan,
Yeah.
but, you know, because periodically they ask me, what do I think? And I've never seen them follow through on mine, but, ideas.
I
They
think
actually,
they should have
someone,
it in.
yes, a couple of folks called our, my office thinking that we had, like it was public-private, and I referred them to Williston, and Williston very politely told them, but also let us know that there is no immediate plan to, yes, it's in the master plan, and of course, I've asked for a use that comes back on the tax roll, but they were like, yeah, we, you know, direct to us anybody who asks, but know
I think
that.
I think initially when they built the new dorms, they were gonna unload those like immediately, and now they step back and say, well, wait a minute,
Yeah, well,
maybe
that-
we can find,
Yeah.
you know.
Right?
I think we should
I'm
open
sorry
it
to
up.
have to leave midnight.
Well, I'm gonna,
Thank you all.
we can
See you all
shut that
Tuesday.
off.
I motion we adjourn.
Motion adjourned. A second.
Second.
You have nothing to share from telecommunications.
Oh, from telecom, I mean,
Did you?
it's not really a serious update from the last meeting, but we will be going to city council tomorrow to give them our letter of recommendation,
Oh,
which
well,
we
that's
had talked
cool.
about.
That's important.
And so the last meeting, we basically went the whole time, just going line by line, editing. Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to bring something up. There's a Charter Review Committee meeting on Thursday. Ranked choice voting is the topic. And People would be great, bodies in the room would be nice.
Is that on?
Yes.
Oh, I'll wait till it's off.
Did we adjourn?
Yeah, are we adjourned now?
Are we adjourned? We're adjourned.
I'll second, yeah.
Yeah.
We adjourned.
Okay.
So Chris, you know, remember